Big bags of food from McDonald's restaurant, a backyard that was hidden by plastic tarps. Ariel Castro's neighbors say that they saw these unusual things and that something wasn't quite right in that house. One man even says he saw Gina De Jesus, one of the three women that man allegedly held captive for a decade just before she was kidnapped. But he says when he told the police, they ignored his complaint. Our Gary Tuckman has all the details.
Eric Poindexter believes he could have helped Cleveland police end this kidnapping nightmare 9 years ago.
My brother and I was driving down the street on the day that Gina De Jesus was abducted.
The street is West 105th, only a couple of blocks away from the school Gina was walking home from the day she was kidnapped. Eric and his brother were driving when a car came up on their left in the turning lane.
Then you saw a girl walking down the sidewalk on that side of the street.
Yeah, right over there, right by the corner, right there by that brick building, yep.
And what did you see this driver do after that?
Once we crossed Fidelity here, this intersection, he swerved in front of us, almost hitting us to get into where the parking lane, quote unquote, is. And as soon as we passed him up, he did a U-turn, didn't care if anybody was coming the other way or nothing, did hit a U-turn right in front of towards where the little girl was walking.
In this week's police report about the case, authorities reveal that Gina has confirmed she was kidnapped in West 105th Street.
After Eric and his brother saw the car make a U-turn and head towards the girl, they also made a U-turn, angry that they almost got hit by the driver and also concerned about the girl. But when they got to the spot where they had seen the girl, they no longer did. She was gone.
It wasn't long before reports surfaced about a missing girl named Gina De Jesus. So Eric and his brother say they immediately called the police to tell them what they saw.
She was wearing tight black pants and a puffy gray jacket.
And what was the description of Gina De Jesus after she went missing?
It was a little girl, Puerto Rican girl with long curly black hair, wearing black pants, tight black pants, and a gray puffy jacket.
Same exact description?
Same exact description.
Eric says the authorities didn't ever seem to think their information was credible.
It seemed like they was looking at us like we were just looking for attention or something like that.
The police?
Yes. They didn't seem to give any real true desire to the case, you know what I'm saying? What we was telling them, they thought it was just we were blowing smoke up their butts or something. I don't know.
Why do you think that is?
I have no clue.
And after the arrest of Ariel Castro, Eric and his brother say that is the face they saw behind the wheel that day. But theirs isn't the only story that, if acted upon, could have ended the terror allegedly brought by Ariel Castro. In 2004, after Castro, who was a school bus driver, had allegedly kidnapped two girls and was about to kidnap Gina De Jesus, he left a child on his bus as he headed into the bus depot. I asked police why Castro wasn't more aggressively questioned about the incident.
He was interviewed extensively relative to this complaint that we had. He was not a suspect in any other complaint. This was he was a bus driver who inadvertently, so he says, left the kid on a bus, went in for a lunch break, came back, and then found the young man.
Castro was never prosecuted for that incident. A year later, Castro was accused in court documents of repeated abuse and domestic violence against his common-law wife, Grimilda Figueroa. He was accused of everything from breaking her nose twice to dislocating her shoulders. But the case was ultimately dismissed because of numerous delays caused by Castro not showing up and attorneys for both sides not showing up. Police strongly defend their work in this case and say they have no records of any recent calls pertaining to Ariel Castro. They also tell us they have not been able to confirm if they have records of talking to Eric Poindexter and his brother back when the kidnapping happened.
I now believe 100% of my heart that he was there to abduct that little girl. And I believe that little girl was Gina De Jesus.
Police say they will continue to investigate if other calls have been made over the years. Gary Tuckman, CNN, Cleveland.
And that investigation is broad on so many fronts. But could the police have done more before all of this? Were warning signs ignored? I want to bring in former New York City Chief Investigator Steve Kardian. He joins us from Valhalla, New York via Skype. And you are also a police detective, Steve. You're a great person to ask. Is hindsight 20/20, or when you hear the things that Gary Tuckman just told us with the interview that he conducted of that man who said he saw a little girl and was so concerned he circled back and she was gone and that police weren't interested, is that the kind of thing that can really go on, and should there be more attention to find out if that really did happen?
Well, you know, we in a case like this, especially a high-profile case like this, we'll see a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking going on. I'm an advocate for anything we can do to improve our police operations to keep our young and our females safe.
And what about the notion that the police do answer that their logs don't show many of the calls that people have said they have made in the past, in this past decade? Every time we get a report to the press that someone says he or she made the call, the police come back and say it's just not there. How accurate are those call logs, and how often do people say something to police, perhaps not on the telephone, and it doesn't get logged?
Well, every call that's generated by the public to the police department is logged in, whether it be blotter, used to be in the blotter years ago, back in the 1990s, and then we became computerized more than 10, 12 years ago, depending upon the agency. But the calls are accurately recorded, and they can be cross-referenced rather easily. This information, if it were to have been reported to law enforcement, it may have helped, it may have not helped. We're going to learn from this. This is a very rare instance, this type of a case, the J.C. Dugards, the Elizabeth Smarts, now the Cleveland case. Very rare. Law enforcement typically doesn't see a woman or a child abducted 10, 15, 20 years ago and live to be discovered.
But now we know they happen, Steve, and now we know that we have to be vigilant. And if we have 3 kids disappearing on the same street, I get it. Without probable cause, you can't go marching into people's homes. But isn't there something more that can be done to canvass those neighborhoods and to do more to find out a better picture of who's living where and what kind of background they might have? There was some very unusual behavior in Castro's background.
Yeah, in retrospect, looking at his domestic violence history, looking at the history with him leaving that child on the bus, does it necessarily direct us to a serial kidnapper?
No, but the abuse of his wife, the horrifying circumstances of his wife, that would be a red flag, wouldn't it?
Oh, it's a red flag under any aspect of domestic violence. Would that cause law enforcement to take a closer look at him? Of course, and I'm sure that that's been done. But to get behind his closed doors without probable cause, without a judge signing off on a search warrant, very difficult process. But we do need to have better communication with the public. We do need to further take it that 1 step or 2 steps further to look at a suspicious circumstance, however minute as it might be, so that we can better be able to do our jobs and find and discover cases like this more rapidly.
And sometimes they are needles in a haystack, without question. And hindsight is very much 2020. Steve Kardian, thank you for that.